What if tomorrow everyone just decided to stop paying taxes? Like, what if 7 billion people collectively looked at their tax bill and said, you know what? No, not today. Not ever again. I think about this more than I probably should. My name is Jake, and I spend way too much time thinking about taxes, about why they exist, about who they actually serve, and about what the world would genuinely look like if they disappeared overnight. And honestly, the answer is way more complicated and way more interesting than most people expect. So let's actually dig into this, because taxes are one of those things everyone hates, but nobody really understands. And I think if you understood them, really understood them, you might still hate them, but at least you'd hate them for the right reasons. Let's start at the very beginning. Taxes are not a modern invention. They are not something governments cooked up in the last few hundred years to squeeze money out of working people. The earliest recorded tax system goes back to ancient Mesopotamia, around 5,000 years ago. The Sumerians were taxing grain and livestock. Ancient Egypt taxed labor. The Roman Empire funded its roads, its military, its infrastructure, all on the back of taxation. And here's the thing that hits different when you really sit with it. Every great civilization in human history, everyone, built itself on some version of collective contribution. The idea that society pools resources to do things individuals simply cannot do alone. That's basically what a tax is. It's not theft. It's not charity either. It's a mechanism, a tool. Now, why does this matter for you sitting here right now? Because when you understand what taxes actually fund, the conversation changes. Roads, emergency services, public schools, military defense, clean water systems, food safety inspections, all of it runs on tax revenue. None of that stuff funds itself, and the moment you start pulling that thread, you realize how deeply taxes are woven into literally everything you take for granted every single day. Here's an example that I find genuinely haunting. In 2007, a county in Tennessee allowed residents to opt out of their local fire department service by not paying a small annual fee. One family forgot to pay. Their house caught fire. The fire department showed up, watched the house burn to the ground, and did nothing because the family hadn't paid. That's not a dystopian novel. That happened. That's what a la carte public services actually look like in practice. And suddenly the abstract idea of taxes becomes very, very real. But let's push further. What would actually happen if taxes just stopped? Like globally or even just nationally? Day 1, probably not that dramatic. Day 30? The cracks start showing. Federal employees stop getting paid. Military funding dries up. Road maintenance halts. Public hospitals start rationing care because government subsidies vanish. Schools close or start charging fees that most families cannot afford. Within 6 months, you're looking at social collapse in slow motion. Here's the psychological trick that makes taxes feel so painful. You almost never see what you get for them in real time. When your fire department saves your neighbor's house, you don't get a receipt that says, hey, your taxes did this. When a pothole gets fixed, nobody sends you a thank you note. The benefits are invisible because they're woven into the baseline of ordinary life. But remove them, and oh, you'd feel it instantly. That invisibility is actually one of the most important things to understand about why people are so skeptical of taxes. We're wired to feel losses more acutely than gains, so the money leaving your paycheck stings. The services it funds feel like background noise. That's a psychological gap, not an economic one. Now, are taxes always fair? Absolutely not. This is where I want to be honest with you. Tax systems around the world are riddled with loopholes, inequities, and straight-up weirdness. Corporations pay effective tax rates lower than middle-class workers in many countries. Wealth passed through inheritance can avoid taxation in ways that wage income simply cannot. There are entire industries built around helping the ultra-wealthy minimize their tax burden, while ordinary people don't have the same access to those tools. That's a real problem, and being honest about it matters. Critiquing how taxes are structured is not the same as arguing they shouldn't exist. Here's the actionable piece for you personally. Understanding your own tax situation is one of the highest leverage financial skills you can develop. Most people leave money on the table every single year because they don't know what deductions they qualify for, what credits apply to their situation, or how their income structure affects what they owe. You don't need to be an accountant. You need to be curious. Ask questions. Use resources. If you're self-employed, understand quarterly payments. If you're salaried, understand withholding. If you have investments, understand capital gains. Each of these is a doorway into keeping more of your money legally and ethically. There's also something worth sitting with emotionally. The resentment most people feel toward taxes is often misdirected. The frustration is real. The feeling that the system isn't fair, that your contribution doesn't seem proportional to what you receive, that's legitimate. But the target of that frustration matters. When we channel it into blanket rejection of the concept of taxation, we end up advocating for something that would genuinely hurt the most vulnerable people in society first and hardest. When we channel it into demanding better, more transparent, more equitable systems, that's where change actually happens. Let me bring this back to something simple. Taxes exist because humans figured out a long time ago that some problems are too big for any individual to solve alone. Defense, infrastructure, public health, education. These are collective challenges requiring collective solutions. The mechanism we invented to fund those solutions is taxation. It's imperfect, sometimes deeply imperfect. But the alternative isn't some libertarian paradise where everyone keeps their money and everything magically works out. The alternative, historically and practically, is chaos or feudalism, where private power fills the vacuum left by absent public institutions. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. First, taxes are ancient, and they exist for genuinely important reasons, rooted in the nature of civilization itself. Second, the services they fund are so integrated into daily life that their value only becomes visible when they disappear. Third, tax systems are often inequitable, and that deserves critique and reform, not blanket rejection. Fourth, understanding your own tax situation is one of the most practical things you can do for your financial health. And fifth, the frustration you feel is valid but directed at the structure, not the concept. Honestly, I think most of us walk around with this low-grade anger about taxes without ever really examining where it comes from, or whether it's pointed in the right direction. And I get it. Watching money leave your paycheck before it ever touches your bank account is genuinely uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't the same as injustice. Sometimes discomfort is just the cost of living in a functional society. You don't have to love taxes. Nobody's asking you to celebrate them. But understanding them, really understanding them, gives you something more valuable than either blind acceptance or reflexive rejection. It gives you clarity. And clarity, that's actually pretty powerful. Keep asking questions. Keep looking closer. The answers are almost always more interesting than you expect.